Hello and welcome to Nicola Hageman Accountancy, and today's topic of getting your business accounts organised. So I'm just going to share this with you. So first of all, what does this mean? Now, bookkeeping. So this is your fundamental way of keeping track of all your income and expenses to make sure that you can then provide your, to sort out your year-end accounts at the end of the year. So there are three different ways of keeping track of all of this. First of all, paper records. Now, this is so hard for you as an individual, as a business, to keep track of everything. Keeping everything on paper records is so manual. It means that you end up with paperwork piling up and then looking at it probably once a year and going, I don't want to do it. So yeah, have this not as being the way that you do your bookkeeping. The next way up, which is a middle ground, I'm quite happy, it's quite a good way of doing it. There are better, but it's quite a good way, is using something like Excel. So this would go through, record all of your income, all of your expenses. You would have your bank account kind of details on there as well, and you could be able to code all of those, reconcile your bank account. So again, it's quite a manual process, but it is much better to be able to keep everything in one place at the same time. Now, the number one is your bookkeeping software. So something like QuickBooks or Xero would be really great to be able to keep your transactions and keep all your business accounts up and running. So we also use something called Receipt Bank. This is a brilliant tool. So basically, you have an app on your phone. Every time you go out and buy something, you would just take a photograph of the receipt. Anything, if you got it emailed through to you, you could then forward that email on to your Receipt Bank account, and it would do the same thing. So it basically records all of your expenses. It will extract data from it. So it will tell you who the supplier is, how much it was, whether there was VAT on it. And it also really, really cleverly works out what it was that you've been buying. So it does it based on the sort of type of business that you've bought something from. So if you went to Ryman's, for example, we know that Ryman's is a stationery shop. So it would suggest that it was a piece of stationery. What you can also do is set rules up for each of your suppliers. So if you always buy your stationery from Ryman's, you could just say, right, every time you see a receipt from them, code it as stationery, put 20% VAT on it, and publish it automatically into my bookkeeping software. So literally, you could take a photograph of a receipt. Once it's processed through the system, it would then sit in QuickBooks or it would sit in Xero, and it would be marked as being a bill, so something that you have to pay. What the software then allows you to do is also put your bank account into it. So you would then have all of your bank transactions listed. And for that Ryman's receipt that has just automatically gone all the way through into your software, it would say, oh, here's that £10 that you spent at Ryman's. Is this the receipt? Is this the payment for it? You would say yes, match it, and it's gone. And it's no longer marked as a bill, and you've reconciled that bank transaction as well. So I say software, amazing. Definitely, if you aren't already on it, you need to go and have a look to see what how it can improve your life. So just to go through best practice. So for sales, your best practice is to raise your invoices to your customers in your software. So this then means you add all of your customers into your accounts package, you put their name in the top, and it automatically fills in all their details. So it's got their addresses, it's got their email address, and everything on there. You would then put your amounts that you need to pay for, what they're buying, a description. You can also set up standards in your invoices. So if you know that you always sell widget A at £5 each plus VAT, you could just have a drop down and you can say widget A, it fills all of that in, and you just tell them how many of that is, and you're good to go. It fills it all out, works out what the total is, and then you just click send and it emails it straight through to your customer. So your customer will then have an email come in. You can also track if that customer has opened that invoice or opened that email, seen it. You can send reminders if they haven't paid on the due date. You can link PayPal or other payment softwares, but PayPal for most of them. And you can put a little button on the email to say pay now. So you could send your client or your customer an invoice with a little button to pay now. They log into PayPal, or they've just put their their credit card details in, and they've paid your invoice. Now, I don't know about you, but from my point of view, I find the path of least resistance is more likely to get me to pay for things. So if I have to go into my bank and I have to go and set up a new payee and I have to go and make a payment and I have to put my one-time passcode in, I have to log in with my machine to be able to make that payment, I'm likely to forget, because at this precise moment in time that I've received that invoice, it's unlikely that I am ready to make that payment. Now, if I can click a button and it takes me to PayPal, which I know my login for on my phone and I know it on my computer, and I can just click pay, I'm done. I've paid it. I'm sorted. I literally would do it within the first minute of receiving that invoice through, because I know it's done then and it's finished. So from your point of view as a business, you want to make it as easy as possible for your customers to pay you. And say, having a button on your invoice is definitely number one. You're more likely to get more cash in. You're unlikely to have as much bad debt. You're likely to get your payments in before even the due dates. So just bear that in mind when you're sort of thinking about how to set up your payment scheme. So back into the software, once that person's made that payment, and whether that's through the Pay Now or whether it's through bank transfer, you can then match those payments off. Now, what this enables you to do is to go into your debtors file. So you can go into a report in QuickBooks, in Xero, in Free Agent, whichever one you're using, and you can have a look at everybody that owes you money. So you know that customer A, customer 17 and 21, they haven't paid their invoices, and actually customer A's invoice is like 2 weeks overdue. So you need to be making a phone call to them and ask them why they haven't paid it. So it gives you a really, really good report to be able to say, I know exactly where I am in regards to my customer payments, without you having to go and trawl through your bank account and to look at your invoice list and work out, oh no, they did pay because I've got that over here, and if I look over there, everything's in one place, and it just makes it super, super easy. Okay, so let's go on to best practice for expenses. So this is where Receipt Bank comes in. So say you buy something, take a photo of your receipt or email it through. Receipt Bank extracts the data, you check that and publish it straight through into QuickBooks or into Xero. And then that's where the bank comes in, you match the payment off. So again, like the debtors, this allows you to run a report to see who you owe money to. It could be that you've set up a direct debit with some of these people, or you've got a standing order that goes out every month or whatever. So, but at least you've got it in a list, and you can go through and you would then know that you've got 10 things that are going to be paid over the next month, week, whatever it is. 5 of them are going out automatically, and you know what dates they're going out. And then the other 5 you need to make manual payments for. But you know that you actually are owed £3,000 from your customers because you've already done that report. So you think, well, actually, if I get that money in there, I can then make all of these payments here and I've got no problem. So you can really, really easily work out exactly where you stand from a cash point of view in your business. And cash is fundamental. I'm sure you've all heard cash is king. So it's turnover is vanity, profit is sanity, cash is king. So yes, great, have loads of turnover, it's amazing. But if you've got loads of costs, you're not making as much profit. So actually, is there any point? And also, if you're not getting your cash in, if nobody's paying you any money, you are not going to be able to survive as a business. So cash is the fundamental area of your business that you should be managing on a regular basis. So knowing who owes you money and who you owe money to and when makes your life really easy for planning. So general best practices, please have a separate bank account for your business. It makes everyone's life so much easier. So it doesn't have to be a business bank account. It could be, if you're a sole trader, you can have a personal account as long as it's separate. Just keep it separate from your day-to-day living expenses. If you're a limited company, you have to have a business bank account. It has to be in the limited company's name, and you have to because it's a separate entity, but you do have to have a separate bank account. And don't put personal expenses through the business account. So if you're going to go and do your Tesco shop, that's fine. Go and do your Tesco shop. If you need money for it, take some money out from the business account, but do it as a transfer into your personal account, because transfers between your business and your personal account are so much easier to keep track of. So you know that every time you transfer money to this bank account, it's a transfer, and that's it, it's done. You don't know that if you bought something from Tesco's, whether that was a business expense, you might have had to go and buy a new printer that you bought from Tesco's, and that's totally fine. You're allowed to do that as a business expense, but if you've just got a Tesco's receipt coming through on your bank account, how do you know what that was? So by putting your personal stuff through your personal account and your business stuff through your business account, it's really easy to keep those separate. So yeah, 100% don't put personal stuff through. It's fine. If you want to transfer 200 quid over to pay for something, totally fine. Most of the time, totally fine. Are reasons why you might not want to do that. But yeah, so most of the time it's fine. And another top tip is to put money aside from each invoice that you receive in from your customer towards your tax or your VAT. If you're charging clients VAT, I recommend putting all that VAT payment straight into another bank account, because then you know that you've got all the VAT ready to make that payment each quarter. When it comes to tax, obviously you've got all your expenses that you can take off of your income. Now, depending on what your business does, that might be a large proportion of your income. It might be small. So if you're a contractor, you might not have many expenses, which means actually if you take 20% of your income and put it in another bank, you should have plenty to be able to pay your corporation tax, for example, 19%. If you're a business that buys and sells widgets, we'll go back to them again, and you know that actually a widget, you sell a widget for a tenner and it's going to cost you a £5 to buy it. There's no point putting 20% of the £10 away, because you're not going to pay tax on the £10, you're going to be paying tax on the £5 profit. So just work out on your own circumstances, work out roughly how much profit you make from every £10 of income, and use that as your basis to be putting tax away into a separate bank account. And as mentioned earlier, top tip, try to do your bookkeeping at least weekly, because this means that you're doing things as they happen. So say you leave your whole year or all your accounts to the end of the year, and you go, oh my God, I've got so much work to do. I hate doing accounts. It's ridiculous. It takes me so long. You've got a whole year's worth of expenses to do, a whole year's worth of receipts, a whole year's worth of invoices to record. And it's going to take you a long time. But also, if you've got something from 12 months ago, are you going to remember what it was that you bought? And that's one of the things that that you could end up losing out on, because you haven't got details of what your expense was 12 months ago. You can't remember if it was buying a printer or if it was buying Tesco's food shop. So you have to put that as personal, because you've got no proof that it was a business expense. Whereas if you're doing it weekly, so if I was doing it on a Friday and I was like, oh, what's this Tesco's transaction on Monday? Oh, it's the printer that I bought, because I know that I did it, because I remember it was 3 days ago. It's much easier to be able to remember what your business expenses are. And then either you go, right, where's that receipt? Oh, it's in my purse, I've got it. Or you go, do you know what? I haven't got the receipt. I must have thrown it away, but I know it was a printer. I'm going to put it as a business expense, put a comment in that I've lost the receipt, but it was a printer. And it just means that you've got it's much easier for you to keep track of exactly what your income and expenses are. So there are other apps that you can use as well, which will keep you organized a bit better. So something like Trip Capture, MileIQ are really great for keeping track of your business miles. So even if you're only making a few trips every so often to the post office, to a networking event, to meeting a customer, but it's once a month, it still all kind of builds up, and you can claim 45p per mile on these if you're using your personal car for business journeys, which when you start adding in and you've done 100 miles, that's like 45 quid. That you can take out of the business without having to pay any income tax on it. It's a tax deductible expense, so you're saving 20% or 19% corporation tax or 20% income tax, and it soon adds up. I mean, like 100 miles is not difficult to do. If you go to a networking event that's 20 miles away, 20 miles round trip, you've done like twice that in a year. So it's all these little things. And so Trip Capture costs about £2 per month. MileIQ is about a £5. You might be able to get that as part of your subscription if you've got Microsoft Office, depending on what levels you're at. Sometimes you can get MileIQ included. Now, Trip Capture, you kind of have to remember to put to track it at the beginning of a journey. So you say go, and it uses your GPS. It tracks you there, it tracks you back, and it's great. Keeps a track of it, puts it all through Receipt Bank, puts it into your software. Fantastic. MileIQ tracks every journey that you do. And then you have to go in and say whether it was personal, whether it was business, and what it was if it was business. Now, it's a little bit more long-winded to get that information into your bookkeeping software. You have to download a spreadsheet that you have to upload in, or put the numbers in as a journal into your software. So it all depends on kind of your personal circumstances, which way you prefer to go with those. But totally recommend both of them. My clients use both, so really great bits of kit. Another one, something like Square or iZettle for taking payments. And one of the great things about these is you can link them to your online software. So as well as having your bank account, so Santander bank account listing all of your transactions, you can also link your payment processing software. So it will then keep track of it as a bank. It will record all your income coming in from customers. It will record your bank charges, and it records the transfer going into your bank. So it's a really great way of keeping track of everything that's going through your business and all of the income that you've got coming in. And then another one for people that are employing staff members. So you could use something like Clockify, something like T-Sheets, and these are time tracking bits of software. So there are also softwares where you can have apps where you could have a QR code in your office, you can have it in the staff room, or if you're a bar or something, or a restaurant, you can have it kind of just there ready. Your staff member walks in the door, they scan the code, that books them in. They scan the code when they've finished their shift and they go home, and that books them back out again. And it means especially if you've got a large number of kind of staff that are doing smaller hours, but you've got a large volume of them, it keeps track of all of their times, all the hours that they've done, and it just makes it really, really easy to run payroll at the end of the week or at the end of the month. So it can keep track of those. So I hope you found this useful. If you have any questions at all, please comment below the video. And if there's anything else on a different topic that you'd like to hear about, please let me know, and we will be able to sort that out. So thank you very much for listening.